everyone to the Racial Healing, Racial Justice and Unity Baha'i-inspired series. And I'm Sherilyn Stevens, your host and moderator. And thank you all for coming and spending your evening with us tonight. Before we get started, I always like to do our gratitudes. I don't think it's something that should be left to the end. So we really want to thank all of the folks that make this evening possible. And I'm going to start out with Nason and Jillian Sturdivant, who, as returnees know very well, is our technical support. They do all the stuff on the back end. They make us look good. They keep us online. They've got the Zoom account for us to go over 100. And we're just so delighted, and they're so delightful to work with. They're my partners in arms. And also I'd like to thank Regina Yonker. She'll be singing a prayer for us this evening, and she also advises us and assists us with content throughout, the course of the program. So Regina, thank you so much for being here tonight and giving us your time and your contributions to the devotion. We also want to thank all of you, because this wouldn't be possible or meaningful if you weren't here. So thank you all so very much for coming this evening. And of course, we have a very special guest, Dr. RiChar Sancho. And you can see her in the beautiful yellow turban there. And she's our guest presenter this evening. We're very excited and looking forward to the expertise and insights and experiences that she has to share with us. So, having said that, let me just briefly state what we're doing this evening. As you know, every presentation isn't always the same, and this is no exception. As usual, after the devotional portion, we will be turning the chat off. We're only going to leave it on so that you can acknowledge the tribal affiliation of the location in which you reside. And we have a slide for that if you've not seen it or done it before that will tell you how to do that. So you can enter that in the chat. And during the course of the devotion, which this evening is a very special one because we're paying a tribute both to the Buffalo 10 and to the Uvalde 21. This will be a rather long devotional compared to what we normally do. But we want to say these important names of these important lost souls that have unwillingly sacrificed their lives in the name of justice. And we really want to honor them. So we'll have a presentation for that. And any time during the devotions, if you'd like to enter in the chat the names of ancestors you would like to call to be in this space with you and the rest of us, or just to remember and honor, please feel free to put them in the chat. And that's the other reason why we're putting the chat open. Chat will be available to Nason, Jillian, and myself throughout. So if you have a question or a pressing concern, we'll be able to address that. And you can address that chat to anyone. And again, if you're new, the reason why we do that is because we want all the conversation in the room. And we want to be respectful of what is being presented to us during the course of our time together. So having said that, we're going to go ahead and start first with, we'll be acknowledging the Buffalo 10, then the Uvalde 21, and concluding with our Indigenous land acknowledgement. And then I'll be introducing formally our guest presenter for this evening. Now, I do need, I'm looking for one reader to read all of the Buffalo 10 voices. And if there's anyone here that would like to do that, please raise your participant hand, and then we will go ahead and start. It's a few slides. So please raise your hand. Laura Ware. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Laura. That's okay. Wonderful.
Am I supposed to be reading, Ms. Shirley?
Sure. You'll be reading starting, I think it's the second or third slide. It will be listing the names of all the Buffalo 10. And that will be the first slide. And you'll continue until there are no more stories, or not stories, but background to be shared for each of those who gave their lives. You'll know, and I'll help you too. So thank you so much for stepping up on that. Okay, Jillian, if we can go to our devotional slides, we'll start that. And give us just a second here. Oh, Chuck, would you mind reading this quote, please, for us to start us in our devotional portion? And we will have background music. Friends, if you find that it is disturbing, please just email us, or I'm sorry, send a chat to Nason or Jillian to let us know. And we hope this will work out okay. Thank you, Chuck.
Hold that the spirit is annihilated upon the death of the body is to imagine that a bird imprisoned in a cage would perish if the cage were to be broken. Though the bird has nothing to fear from the breaking of the cage. This body is even as the cage, and the spirit is like the bird. We observe that this bird, unencumbered by its cage, soars freely in the world of sleep. Therefore, could the cage be broken, the bird would not only continue to exist, but its senses would be heightened, its perception would be expanded, and its joy would grow more intense. In reality, it would be leaving a place of torment for a delightsome paradise. For there is no greater paradise for the grateful birds than to be free from their cage. Abdul Baha.
Laura?
Below 10, the 10 people who were killed. Roberta A. Drury of Buffalo, New York, age 32. Marcus D. Morrison of Buffalo, New York, age 52. Andre McNeil of Aubrey, New York, age 53, Auburn. Aaron Salter of Lockport, New York, age 55. Geraldine Talley of Buffalo, New York, age 62. Hayward Patterson of Buffalo, New York, age 67. Catherine Massey of Buffalo, New York, age 72. Pearl Young of Buffalo, New York, age 77. Ruth Whitfield of Buffalo, New York, age 86. Catherine Massey, 72. Miss Massey was known for her civil rights advocacy. And almost 1 year ago, after the cousin of a state lawmaker was fatally shot near the lawmaker's district office, Miss Massey wrote a letter to the editor in the Buffalo News calling for stricter federal gun control measures. She called for more accountability for the makers and sellers of firearms. There needs to be extensive federal action, legislation to address all aspects of the issue, she wrote. She was in love with the community, said her longtime friend, Betty Jean Grant, and she loved Black people, and she would fight for anybody without a doubt. Aaron Salter. During his 30 years as a Buffalo police officer, Aaron Salter Jr. earned a reputation for bravery, with more than one of his exploits regarded in the local newspaper, the Buffalo News. He once chased down an arsonist, the newspaper reported, and on another occasion, he faced down a burglar armed with a shotgun. Mr. Salter retired in 2018, switching to a job that should have been far less treacherous, working as a security guard with the Tops supermarket in East Buffalo. But on Saturday, Mr. Salter, 55, would once again encounter a situation that would test his bravery when a man, wearing body armor and camouflage gear and armed with an assault weapon, stormed into the supermarket and opened fire. Mr. Salter confronted the gunman and fired back, but he became one of the 10 people, including 3 other store employees and several shoppers who were killed in one of the deadliest racist massacres in American history. Ruth Whitfield, 86. Mrs. Whitfield was a devoted parishioner for 50 years at Durham Memorial AME Zion Church, where she sang in the choir. Her daughter-in-law, Cassietta Whitfield, said, and Ruth Whitfield had lived in Buffalo for more than 5 decades, raising 4 children. In recent years, she had been caring for her husband, who was in a nursing home. She had 8 grandchildren. She was a religious woman who cared deeply for her family, her daughter-in-law said. Hayward Patterson, 67. Mr. Patterson would travel to the supermarket daily, giving people rides for less money than they would have had to spend on a taxi or a share riding service. His grandniece, Taniqua Clark, said, that was how he earned money to support 3 children, his nephew, Terrell Clark, said. He was helping someone load groceries into the trunk of a car when he was killed, she said. He didn't even have a chance to run, Mrs. Clark said. He didn't have a chance at all. Mr. Patterson, who lived in the Buffalo area his whole life, was a kind person who was family-oriented and loved singing in church, Miss Clark said. Roberta Drury, 32. Miss Drury had gone to the Tops supermarket to buy groceries to make dinner, according to her sister, Amanda Drury. She was very vibrant, Miss Drury said. She always was the center of attention and made the whole room smile and laugh. Celestine Cheney, 65. Miss Cheney had been visiting her sister, and they went to the supermarket because Miss Cheney wanted to get strawberries to make shortcakes, which she loved. Wayne Jones, 48, who confirmed she had died in the shooting. It's kind of crazy that she was there shopping because we go shopping together, he said. During the shooting, Miss Cheney's sister made it into the cooler area where workers stored fresh food, Mr. Jones said. People hid there from the gunman. The sister survived, but my mom cannot really walk like she used to, he said. She basically can't run. Andre McNeil, 53. Mr. McNeil had gone to the Tops grocery store for a birthday cake, chips and soda for his 3-year-old son, who was having a party at a relative's house later that day. The boy was so close to his father that he, quote, would just follow him around like his shadow, quote. His mother and Mr. McNeil's fiancée, Tracy McCallowitz, said, before going into the store, he told me he loved me, Ms. McCallowitz said, and added, I'll be back. But Mr. McNeil, who had 6 children and was a devoted Miami Heat fan, never made it out. He was so genuine and so sweet and kind, like no person I've ever met before, Mrs. McCallowitz said. It's completely unfair that racism is still present in 2022. And it's not okay that my son, who is half white and half Black, has to grow up without a father. Geraldine Talley, 62, of Buffalo, was shopping for a few items in a Buffalo Tops friendly market store near her neighborhood. Talley and her fiancé, Gregory Allen, had stopped by the store Saturday afternoon for a few groceries, ingredients for their weekly waterfront picnic. Once inside, the pair split up to collect the items on their list. Geraldine Talley was a beautiful soul, former co-worker Joshua Kellick told the news. She loved her family, and those that weren't family, she treated us like one of her own. Her loss is one that will be felt in the community. Margus Morrison, 52, was out buying snacks at the grocery store for a weekly movie night he had planned with his wife and his stepdaughter. Morrison is a hero to the family who took on a lot of responsibilities and helped provide for her mother, who is disabled. Morrison was a sneaker collector and loved music, said Debs. He will be remembered for his love, kindness, and humor. As a school bus aide of 3 years in the Buffalo area, that love extended to the kids he worked with, and they returned that love back to Morrison, said Debs. It's a very big loss to the community, she said. Morrison is survived by his wife, 3 children, and stepdaughter.
Pearl Young wasn't a Buffalo native, but when she arrived here nearly 50 years ago, she already had the heart of a Buffalonian.
That's the type of person she was. She's always baking cookies, baking cakes, doing stuff like that, cooking spaghetti, whatever she could do for people, she did that.
Some might call her a member of the Good Samaritan Church in Cheektowaga, but most would call her the heart of the congregation. She led Sunday school there for decades.
She will always have food for us for Sunday school. She will always have our books. I mean, when we came downstairs, she was always happy to see us. She was ready to teach us. She was a nice person.
Sunday school started at 8 o'clock. I would get there at like 6:45 Sunday morning because she always had a honey bun for me, and me and her would have coffee. And this is the honest to God truth.
Around here, a smile is synonymous with the name Pearl.
All my memories are the same, like even as an adult and as a kid. She's just, every time you see her, she was just happy. She was happy to see you.
It was her spirit, how she would, every time we came in, it was giving her a hug that brought us out of our day. It would bring a smile to her face if we gave her a hug. It was her.
It was that smile her family is now forced to remember through photos. Her best friend and sister-in-law was the last to see it Saturday afternoon when she dropped Pearl off at the supermarket on Jefferson.
And left her there because she said, no, I just feel like I want to walk, and I'll take just a few items and I'll walk home. And from there, last time you seen her, because I know she's kind of devastated, feeling like that if I hadn't dropped her off, I try to imagine how she feels.
No one can quite put into words yet what it means to not have Pearl's smile, her singing, her dancing, or her love of God and people to light up this world anymore.
When she walked in, her voice.
Just her in general. It's not gonna be the same without her.
We're gonna miss her. Like, we're gonna miss her so much.
Oh my God, oh now forgive her of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of affliction, verily I beseech thee, to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment, and have ascended to spiritual world. Oh my Lord, purify them from trespasses, spare their sorrow, and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness, cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. Adore her.
Rompe tu jaula y como el fénix del amor ve remontando hasta llegar al firmamento que te aguarda y conocer la santidad del bien amado. Libérate de las cadenas de este mundo y suelta tu alma de la prisión del yo que te domina. No pierdas tu oportunidad de hallar la calma. Es tan sencillo de comprender y tan hermoso de recordar que si lo intentas, si estás con él, tendrás la vida con Baha'u'lláh. Oh, es tan sencillo de comprender y tan hermoso de recordar que si lo intentas, si estás con él, tendrás la vida con Baha'u'lláh. La mala hierba no la plantéis en el jardín del corazón y júntate con el que es justo de por vida para que encienda en ti la llama del amor. Con sus palabras y la fragancia de sus labios te hablará. Solo procura no apartarte de su lado, pues solo así te sentirás en libertad. Es tan sencillo de comprender y tan hermoso de recordar que si lo intentas y estás con él, tendrás la vida con Baha'u'lláh. Hoy es tan sencillo de comprender y tan hermoso de recordar que si lo intentas y estás con él, tendrás la vida con Baha'u'lláh.
Jackie Casares, 9. Jackie Casares, who recently had her first communion, was a social butterfly. Her aunt, Polly Flores, described her as my little diva. She was outgoing, Flores said. She always had to be the center of attention. Annabelle Rodriguez, Jackie's cousin and dear friend, was in the same class and lost her life in the shooting. Jose Flores, 10. Jose Flores, whose family called him Josecito and Baby Jose, loved cars and sports and played baseball for the Uvalde Little League. He dreamed of becoming a police officer, and though he had struggled in school early on, he had recently buckled down, earning a place on the honor roll. Jose's sister, Andrea, also in the 4th grade at Robb Elementary School, escaped through a window on the day of the shooting. I can't even imagine a world in which both could have died, Cynthia Herrera, Jose's stepmother, said. Losing Josecito is painful enough. I will never be the same. Uzia Garcia, 10. Uzia Garcia had moved to Uvalde to live with Nikki and Brett Cross, his aunt and uncle, just in time for the start of the school year. He loved playing basketball, soccer, the virtual reality game Gorilla Tag, and Fortnite. His favorite after-school snack was Nutella sandwich with blue Takis, which he would try to persuade others to try. He was goofy. He loved to make you laugh, Ms. Cross said. He loved making everybody laugh. Uzia, or Uzi for short, would have liked to be a professional gamer or YouTuber. But he also expressed an interest in becoming a police officer because he wanted to help people. He was thrilled that he had a male teacher at Rob, Arnulfo Reyes, and he talked about him all the time, they said. Days after the shooting, they got his possessions back from the classroom. Tucked among his things was a portrait he had drawn of Mr. Reyes, who was badly injured in the attack. Nikki and Brett Cross, the guardians of Uzia Garcia. Amerijo Garza, 10. Amerijo Garza was a friendly 10-year-old who loved Play-Doh. Her father, Alfred Garza III, described her as full of life, a jokester, always smiling. She liked spending time with her friends at lunch, on the playground, and during recess. She was very social, he said. She talked to everybody. The family's loss came after losing several loved ones to COVID-19 over the past 2 years. We were finally getting a break. Nobody was passing away, Mr. Garza said. Then this happened. Javier Lopez, 10. Javier Lopez made the honor roll on the day he was killed. He was eager to come home and share the news with his 3 brothers, but his grandparents said Javier decided to stay at school to watch a movie and eat popcorn with his classmates. They remembered Javier as an exuberant baseball and soccer player who had a girlfriend at school with whom he chatted away on the phone. To Leonard Sandoval, 54, Javier's grandfather, the boy's death was incomprehensible. Why, he asked. Why him? Why the kids? Tess Marie Mata, 10. Tess Mata had a cat named Oliver and planned to become a veterinarian. She loved her classmates and her teachers and did well in school. She was sassy, said her sister, Faith Mata, a 21-year-old college student, sometimes using the present tense to describe Tess. She loves dancing. She loves to get dressed up with her hair done. She's just a ball of joy. I don't think she ever came in contact with someone and they didn't leave with a smile on their face. The sisters often watched old Disney movies, but much of their time together was spent on the softball field, where Tess became a second-base standout under the tutelage of her older sister. That little girl taught herself to pitch by watching YouTube videos and would have been an amazing pitcher, Ms. Mata said. Miranda Gale Mathis, 11. When Miranda Gale Mathis started school, she was shy and quiet. Her mother, Diana Gornto said, but eventually she opened up and made friends. She was a creative girl who loved music, mermaids, and unicorns, encouraged by her mother and aunts. She and her younger brother were always together and loved to play Roblox on her tablet. But Miranda also loved the outdoors. She enjoyed running during school field days, swimming in the river, and showing rocks she found to her mother. The one thing I know is she loved her whole family, Mrs. Gornto said. She loved all of us. Annabel Rodriguez, 10. Annabel Rodriguez was a quiet girl and an honor roll student. She was in the same class as her cousin, Jackie Casares, and the girls were close, so close that Annabel's twin sister, who was homeschooled, was always jealous, said Polly Flores, Jackie's aunt and Annabel's great-aunt. Both girls were killed in the school shooting. We're a very tight family, Ms. Flores said. It's just devastating. Maite Juliana Rodriguez, 10. Maite Juliana Rodriguez was a small girl with big ambitions and a mindset to get things done. Her mother, Ana Rodriguez, described Maite as focused and determined. Before the pandemic, she was a straight-A student. Her grades had slipped a bit over the difficult past 2 years, but she was working hard to turn that around. On the morning of the shooting, she received an award for making the school's AB honor roll and won recognition for her computer skills. Since kindergarten, Maite had dreamed of becoming a marine biologist, and she hoped to study at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi. More recently, she had taught herself to sew. When a friend gave her a toy sewing machine, she researched how to use it and fix it on YouTube. She began to make pillows for her mother, stepfather, and little brother with motifs of bees, honeycombs, and cowboys. She was a charismatic, loving, ambitious, competitive. She was self-driven, focused. She was a fighter and my best friend, her mother said. She was my sweet girl. Eliana Eli Garcia, 9. Eliana Eli Garcia was just a few days shy of turning 10. Her father, Stephen Garcia, had been looking forward to being the DJ at Ellie's birthday party this summer. On Facebook, he described her as a doll and was the happiest ever. We miss her, he said. Nevaya Lisa Bravo, 10. McKenna Lee Elrod, 10. Mace Carmelo Luevanos, 10. Alicia Haven Ramirez, 10. Eliana Torres, 10. Eliana Torres was determined to get a hit in softball. She was proud to be on the team for the first time, but wanted to stop striking out. So her grandfather hung a ball outside the family home, and Eliana would work on her swing after practice over and over. One more, she would say, as her family told her to come in for bed. One more. Her family said she was a steadfast, incandescent presence in the home she shared with her grandparents, mother, and aunt. She loved to scare her aunt, Laura Cabrales, by springing out from behind a door and shouting, "Boo!" She danced around in front of her phone and belted out Taylor Swift's "You Belong With Me." She was my love, her grandfather, Victor M. Cabrales said. She was one of a kind. After Mr. Cabrales had heart surgery a few years ago, Eliana accompanied him on his doctor-prescribed walks. She made sure her grandparents took their medications. On hot days, she would pour a glass of ice water and have it waiting for her grandfather when he came home from work. The family jokingly called her Enfermerita, the little nurse. Rogelio Torres, 10. Rogelio Torres was the second oldest of 4 children and always helped his siblings, his aunt Eudulia Horta said. "We're still trying to cope with it," she said. "We don't know what to do." He was a loving person, she added. He loved his siblings. Eva Mireles, 44. Eva Mireles loved teaching at Robb Elementary School. She was athletic and ran marathons. Neighbors described her as a good-natured person who was usually smiling. "She brought the neighborhood together," said Javier Garcia, 18, who lived next door. "She loved those children." Audrey Garcia, 48, the mother of a daughter with Down syndrome named Gabi, recalled Ms. Mireles as a transformational teacher in her child's life. Gabi is 23 now, with a high school diploma under her belt. Ms. Mireles had been her 3rd grade teacher. It was only a couple of years earlier, Ms. Garcia said, that the schools in Uvalde area had begun integrating children with mental disabilities into regular classrooms. It was new for teachers in that area, Ms. Garcia said. Ms. Mireles, she said, threw herself into the work. She used every teaching method she knew to help Gabi reach her highest potential, she said. She never saw that potential as lower than anyone else's in her classroom. Jela Silguero, 10. Jela Silguero was the youngest of 4 children, the baby of her family, her father, Jacob Silguero, said. She loved going to school and seeing her friends. "I can't believe this happened to my daughter, my baby," he said. He added, "It's always been a fear of mine to lose a kid." Jayla's siblings are taking it hard, Mr. Silguero said. They just want their sister back. Leila Salazar, 10. Leila Salazar was an energetic girl who had just won 3 first-place ribbons for athletics at school and was already planning summer sleepovers with her friends at her grandparents' house. Her grandfather, Vincent Salazar, said, "My granddaughter was one that loved everything about life, and they took it away from her." Mr. Salazar said, "They took her away from us. How do you mend a broken heart from a family as close as we had?" Relatives from across the country have come to Uvalde to be with the family as they grieve. Mr. Salazar said, "Leila, to our family, was the heart of our life." Alexandria Ania Rubio, 10. Alexandria Ania Rubio, known as Lexi, was an honor student who loved TikTok, dreamed of becoming a lawyer, and was the student every teacher wants, said her mother, Kimberly Rubio. "We talked about women's rights, and she was a budding feminist," said Ms. Rubio, 33, her voice breaking at times. Lexi's parents said they had waited until the last moment to name her, deciding on something that would stand out when called at a high school graduation. "She was my baby," Ms. Rubio said. "I don't want anybody else to go through this." Irma Garcia, 48. Irma Garcia, a teacher for more than 2 decades, was known as a steadfast optimist in her family. She cracked jokes at gatherings in Uvalde, sang her favorite classic rock tunes at parties, and helped a nephew, John Martinez, with homework. She's always been optimistic about everything and just so loving with the people in her life, said Mr. Martinez, 21, a student at Texas State University. Ms. Garcia, or Tia Garcia, as Mr. Martinez referred to his aunt in Spanish, was like my second mom to her nephews and students, he said. She brings a joy and a light to the room. Her husband of 24 years, Joe Garcia, died of a heart attack 2 days after the shooting. He had gone to her memorial on Thursday morning to drop off flowers, ruptured by the grief of losing the love of his life, Mr. Martinez said.
Madam Chair. Haraj, would you read this for us, please?
So difficult after all this. Gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah. The vitality of man's belief in God is dying out in every land. Nothing short of its wholesome medicine can ever restore it. The corrosion of ungodliness is eating into the vitals of human society. What else but the elixir of his potent can cleanse and revive it? Is it within human power or Hakim? I'm sorry, part of it is hidden under your portfolio. That's why I can't see the rest.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can pick it up for you. Thank you so much, Faraj.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is it within human power, O Hakim, to affect in the constituent elements of any as the minute and indivisible particles of matter, so complete a transformation as to transmute it into purest gold? Perplexing and difficult as this may appear, the still greater task of converting Satanist's satanic strength into heavenly power is one that we have been empowered to accomplish. The force capable of such a transformation transcendeth the potency of the elixir itself. The Word of God alone can claim the distinction of being endowed with the capacity required for so great and far-reaching a change.
Oh my Lord, oh thou forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions. Verily, I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world. to the spiritual world, to the spiritual world. Oh my God, purify them from trespasses, remove their sorrows, and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world, ascended to the spiritual world, to the spiritual world, to the spiritual world.
By the righteousness of God, the righteousness of God, the righteousness of God, whoso openeth his lips, whoso openeth his lips, whoso openeth his lips in this day, and maketh mention of the name, maketh mention of the name, maketh mention of the name of his Lord. The hosts of divine inspiration shall descend upon him from the heaven of my name. From the heaven of my name, the all-knowing, the all-wise, by the righteousness of God, the righteousness of God, the righteousness of God, whoso openeth his lips, whoso openeth his lips, whoso openeth his lips in this day, and maketh mention of the name, maketh mention of the name, maketh mention of the name of his Lord. The hosts of divine inspiration shall descend upon him from the heaven of my name. From the heaven of my name, the all-knowing, the all-wise,
Chuck?
I just wanted to, I actually was just typing it in for everyone as remembrance for our ancestors and friends that we've lost. And we recently lost Danny Seals, Jimmy Seals from Seals and Crofts, died Monday. And remembering his younger brother, Danny, who died years ago. The two of them are together in the Alva Kingdom again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. They're great servants of humanity. And now they're on the other side together, making good trouble. But they're sorely missed here. We're going to go ahead and transition into our usual two main devotional components, and then we will be introducing formally our lovely guest speaker this evening, Dr. RiChar Sancho. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce, tell you what's coming next, the next slide. And this is one of Baha'i ancestors who have stood up in the path of justice. There are many, many more. And of course, every faith has them. But these are a few folks we like to recognize and bring to mind. And we invite you during this time again, anyone that you would like to bring in to the space to pray for, and let us not forget our friends in Nigeria, our friends in the Ukraine. Really, we could add the whole world, to be honest. Trafficked people, there's just so much that needs to be corrected. But we'll go ahead and play this slide, and I'll be right back after that. Thank you.
Why so afraid to stand up? Someone will tell you, sit down. But here is the truth, someone will always tell you, sit down. The ones we remember kept standing.
Okay, Nason, would you bring me back, please? I'm out in the ether. One of the things I like about that slide, and we can have the Indigenous acknowledgement up too at the same time, that would be great. One of the things I really like about that slide are the words spoken about standing up. And after what we have honored and paid tribute to today, and over the course of these many months, find a way that you can stand up. Whether it's voting, encouraging other people to vote, take social action. Prayer is not enough. Prayer without deeds, without effort, goes nowhere. Let us all make our own personal commitments to take whatever action is appropriate for you, where you are in your life and in your community, in this country and in this world. We have to act. We have to. This will not stop until we stop it. So now I'd like to invite you. I know some of you have done this already. We like to recognize our Indigenous brothers and sisters. This is an Indigenous acknowledgement, not a land acknowledgement. And that's something of my own doing. Native American land acknowledgements are widely used and accepted throughout the country and in Canada. For us, I changed that to an Indigenous acknowledgement because I think it is the people and what they have done with the land and what they have done for this country and what they have done for the world and what they continue to do despite being the absent minority that no one sees. They are still there. They are standing up for our water rights, for our land rights, and yet do so sacrificially for all of us, not just for themselves. And so these images depict our Indigenous brothers and sisters from various eras and tribes in the United States. The woman with the red hand or face, red hand across her face, that symbolizes all of the Native American women that have disappeared, that no one looks for except their loved ones. No one looks for them. No one looks for them, just as most brown and Black people, when missing, are not looked for. So please, let's remember them. If you've not done this before, you can simply send a text to that phone number and give your zip code, and it will tell you exactly which land you live on, which unceded territory you live on. So we just like to take this moment. We'll take a few moments. We'll have some music to background this for any personal prayers or anything, whether it's Indigenous acknowledgement or not, that you might like to do now, and then we'll be moving into our program. Thank you.
Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah. Ya Baha'u'llah, Ya Baha'u'llah.
Hey, thank you, friends. Two announcements. One, there is a Race Amity Day screening coming up. You should have received an email about it today. We just want to make sure everyone knows about it and invite you to it. The screening of Done Made My Vow to the Lord, the Black Men's Gathering, it's only 25 minutes. It's not very long at all. And then there will be a discussion following, which you are welcome to heartily participate in, to describe what faith communities can do to contribute to racial healing and racial justice. So there's a Zoom link. If you didn't get it and you need it emailed to you, please, you can send me an email and I'll be happy to send it back out to you. Now, before we introduce our speaker, I also have to apologize because in my gratitudes, I forgot something very important. And that was, I failed to recognize our devotional contributions from the Baha'is for Race Unity out of Tucson, Arizona, who put together what were 2 compilations for the Buffalo 10 and the Uvalde 21. So we want to thank them very, very much for that awesome contribution to this evening's presentation. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Dr. RiChar Sancho. And here's a little bit about her. She is the director of her own educational group called Sancho Education Group, which specializes in promoting interactions and organizational spaces that are equitable and just for stakeholders. She holds a bachelor's in accounting, a master's in education, and her thesis her thesis project for her PhD was based in e-tech environments and a specialization on race, inequality, and language, which expanded the definition of what civil leadership means. She is a diversity curriculum designer and has provided training broadly, including to students in China and Africa. Dr. Sancho serves as a consultant and mentor for professionals seeking to improve the skills necessary to bring about cultural intelligence and diversity and unification into fruition. She also works with youth, focusing on developing customized community education initiatives and training. She is also a course facilitator for the eCornell, that's Cornell University's DEI certification, serving both global and domestic business leaders. So with that, please let us welcome Dr. RiChar Sancho. Welcome, hello, thank you for being with us.
Hello, Charlene, thank you so much for inviting me today. I really appreciate it. This is, even though we've had a pretty sad beginning,
Yeah.
Very somber, our thoughts and prayers I know can uplift the spirits that have now joined the others that we know are protecting us or watching over us and are urging us and encouraging us to be bold and strong enough to make a change. So I really appreciate what you've taken the time to do. And thank you for inviting me. Oh, I see copper to gold people here too that are in the session that I'm currently in, learning so much from Charlene and everyone. So hello to you as well. And a big thank you to Miss Elise Hine. I don't think she could make it this evening, but she is a wonderful Baha'i here in South Carolina. And she introduced me to the world of peaceful thinking. And she is the reason that I actually joined the Copper to Gold group to learn even more. So thank you everyone for taking the time to be here this evening. I am going to start this right away, and I may change my background so that if my head completely disappears, it may like that, that it won't distract or take away from anything that we are doing. I am typically a bit interactive. And thank you so much. I don't see the names again, but they're gone. Thank you so much to the wonderful tech team that's here. I saw their names. They were right here and now they've moved. So I cannot find them.
Oh yes, that's Nason. Sure, Nason and Jillian. And
That's
before
right,
you go
Nason.
on, before you go on, I keep forgetting things. So we have a question. We have a question that I'm supposed to ask, okay? So, and hopefully you know how to use the poll, how to raise your hand, okay? Because we're gonna count the number of raised hands. So on your mark, get ready. Here's the question. Are you okay with this presentation being recorded? And it goes on our YouTube channel. If you're okay with that, if that's good for you, raise your participant hand and we'll automatically get a count of how many are raised. We don't have to look at all the pages. Keep going. We're about, we have to get past 50-50. So we need some more hands up, or not, if people would rather not have this recorded.
Sherilyn, would you be able to give them the context in which I mentioned the reason we
Sure.
typically do not record?
Yes, yes, the reason you typically do not record is because Dr. RiChar works with many esteemed people in the business, science, and government communities with her work. And so some of the things we'll be discussing here have to do with psychology. And so typically when she gives this presentation, it's not recorded for that reason. Now you can still be an esteemed person in government.
Oh, that's not the,
Sherilyn,
that's not the main reason. The main reason is because of psychological safety for participants. That's one of the reasons, but the other is because people may not feel comfortable sharing in the chat. They may not feel comfortable sharing so that they can be seen. And it gives them the opportunity to express themselves openly in the environment that they feel is safe. So that's the main reason that we don't record where I am. And that's the reason.
I knew you should have asked the question.
But you had it partly correct.
So if you think let's put the question another way then. So if you think you'd participate more, knowing that it was not being recorded, no, that'll change. I don't want people to have to redo themselves because then that'll mess things up. Okay, the first way I put it was, okay, well, a lot of hands dropped off. Well,
just waiting for you to rephrase the question, that's all.
Okay, all right. So, okay, I'm going to rephrase the question. So the question is, would you participate more? And again, we're not using the chat. So would you participate more in the discussions if this was not being recorded? In other words, you don't want it recorded. That's the question. Would you participate more?
It may not matter.
Okay, it's down to 12. Winnie says, if one is not comfortable with the session, one can always turn their camera off. Thank you, Winnie.
This is true.
Okay. So that question took us down to 11. I tried to state it, in the affirmative, but okay. Now it's down to 10. All right. So having it recorded isn't going to change how you participate.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So I guess we'll record it.
Okay, let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Anyone not sure that's what we're doing or disagree with that? Let me know. I'm trying to read the tea leaves the right way. We tried something like this in our copper to gold group on a topic, and it didn't fare well then either because it's very difficult to do. Okay.
Need to record. It asks you at the very beginning when you come in.
Yes, this is true. Yeah, this is true. This is true. Okay, and Nason says he left. You may also send your comments or questions to the host, and we can pose your question anonymously if you like. That's correct. Thank you, Nason, for reminding me of that. Okay, so we're not going to record. Everyone can put their hands down now, or we can do it for you. And then Dr. Ree can move us along.
Okay.
And we'll get started. Okay, thanks, friends.
Okay, we can begin. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, so here we are beginning. Race, inequality, language in the pursuit of civil leadership. So what I am going to do today is help to explain a little bit about a presentation that ended up being a dissertation for me back in 2019, moving forward into the reason this training program known as K-12 Civil Leadership came out of that. for K-12 educators as well as organizational leaders. And some of this you will find very interesting as it connects to your theme of racial justice and healing. So I'm going to take you on a journey with me. The first thing I would like to do is to ask for the first poll to be sent to everyone, and there will be a total of 2. If that poll can be sent to everyone, please take a moment to respond to the poll as you see it, and then we will see what the responses are. It should be on your screen right now. Where in the world are you right now? And what makes you and your closest friend different? I know that may be a tough one, but see what you might put there as a response. And there are no right or wrong answers, of course. Okay, let's see if we have a majority of answers here. Would you please show the answers to everyone so that they can see who's in the room with them?
Have you got that, Nason?
Yeah, we're at 73%. So really good.
Okay, waiting for more folks to answer to respond.
The second question can be a bit tricky because it is multiple choice, as you will notice.
And several answers were possible.
Exactly. I think on my original one, it might have been a multiple choice or a multiple checkbox answer, but it's okay. See if you can pick the one that is the most, what would be your answer that stands out the most? I had a hard time with it myself. It's okay. I think you can share the results now. I think everyone will understand the reason for the question in a second. Okay, so take a look at some of the responses. Very good. Hello to everyone that's here in the United States and those that are outside of the United States. Take a look at those listings there about you and your closest friend and what makes you different. I think we would all agree that our closest friend may share some similarities with us, yes, which is probably what bonded us. But there are also some differences that may have us to stand apart. I asked you this question so that you could see for yourselves the answers that other people are also saying, that what makes them connect to someone? Does it have to be that you are alike? Or is it your differences that you share that make you share a bond? Let's go and take a look at why I'm asking you these questions. Okay. So back in 2017 or 16, perhaps, I had a very interesting experience. And that experience is what led me to create the K-12 Civil Leadership Program. It was an experience that caused me to need attunement. Sometimes when we are looking through our own personal lenses, we might notice that we are not quite attuned. I think that's what all of us are learning in Copper to Gold, and what many of you have been learning over the years, and what we definitely see in the devotions that came prior to this particular presentation. Sometimes those moments of being out of attunement are what cause us to do things that may hurt others. What led me to create the K-12 Civil Leadership Program, which I will explain to you more in depth, was because of one quote that I heard from a wonderful educator who was a veteran educator. I don't know if we have any educators in the room today. Any educators here? I can see some of your hands. Are you able to raise your hand, your physical hand or reaction tool? Raise your hand if you know an educator. I think all of our hands may go up. Okay, very good. Well, what I'm going to say to you may surprise you. There was a wonderful educator that decided to go to a community forum. Thank you for answering. There's quite a few of us here. And she made the statement, I am tired and I am no longer going to help this third grade student because I can't believe they put her in my classroom. It's So we're listening at the forum, like what could this third grade student have done that was so troubling to this veteran teacher that she is considering not helping this student any longer? The student was an immigrant. She had just moved to our area, which was not heavily populated with people who were different. The little girl asked to go to the bathroom, except she asked to go to the bathroom in Spanish. This veteran educator, who would identify herself as being maybe Caucasian or white, she said, I couldn't understand what she said, and if she is going to live here, she needs to know how to go or ask this question in English. Now, I was taught in my life that I needed to respect my educators. I was taught that educators are individuals who take the time to give you love and support, and that we are never, ever to speak against our educators. And in that moment, and I was a new teacher, okay, I'm coming into this alternative certification. My background is accounting. I'm just learning how to deal with students. I was floored. Now, remind you, I said we're in a community forum, means in the community outside of the school. And this is what I heard. My feelings were so hurt. They were crushed because I couldn't believe that an educator would say that. So I started on this journey because I was taught that when people say things that are hurtful, or when they say things that seem to undermine their own integrity, there is a deeper reason there. It is maybe not because they're trying to be insolent or mean. Perhaps it's because of something deeper. Perhaps because it is a fear. So I'm going to move the word attunement up just a little on the screen, because at that point I realized that if I were to become angry, that was not going to help the situation. So I decided to do something about it. I created a nonprofit at that point, and it was done back in 2007 to model the work and the lived experiences, I should say, of people who are connected with those from other cultures, to show in real time what it means to just be yourself and open to help eliminate some of that fear. Now, I will tell you that this educator did learn eventually how to cope with the students who were coming to her class, because guess what? That one little girl was not the last. Many became, and it became an influx of movement, I should say, into the school district, what people would not expect in this small town. And it is now almost a norm here to see students that come into the location, that come into these buildings, and they cannot speak English very well, and they are depending on you as their teachers and educators and leaders to help them. A third grader, really, what threat could she have posed? Not much of one. So we'll move forward in time. I have something on the screen for each one of you. SAS 2021, Children's Defense Fund, the State of America's Children Report. I'm uncertain how many people may have seen this report, because it's not something that you might do just scanning the internet to find reports all of the time. But I'm wondering if anyone knows this amazing factual statistic that was placed in this report. I saw it in December of 2021, and I learned that all of the students that once were the minorities were now being called the majorities. What on earth? What am I talking about? What on earth am I saying, right? What we learned is that the students that are in the United States that have been deemed as minorities have now become the majority. So we call them the minority majority. This means that the fear from that one teacher from a few years back that is magnified across many other educators will now take a stronger hold, because this fear is rooted in the fact that we just don't have all of the information that we need to do our jobs effectively. Now, that's not just in education, that's everywhere. When we don't know something, sometimes we become fearful, yes? There's a second poll I have for you. Please answer from your heart. I promise this one will be easier for you. Would you be able to show the second poll for everyone? And Sherilyn, I see hands, and I'm wondering if the hands may indicate questions. So please let me know whether they go to you or to me.
Out. Okay, we'll find out. Jen, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll get your hand lowered. Elizabeth and Jonathan, do you have a question?
Oh, wonderful. They're responding to the others. That's good. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll lower your hands there. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you for responding to the questions about the educators. So there's a poll here. I will actually take the poll with you. It says when a child 1 to 17 years old is affronted or verbally hurt by another person, what is your typical reaction? Charlene made mention of this before. Do you pray for them? Do you turn away or leave the area? Do you say something to correct the person immediately? You think of ways to help the victim before you act, which could be the next day. You just observe, or usually I do none of the above. The second question, take your time, says if verbally affronted, who would you help more readily? A child or a teen? A young adult between 18 to 21? Or an adult 22 plus? If this person were verbally affronted and you witnessed it.
I found this somewhere. I try to think of a way to help the victim before I act.
Okay, friends, if you want to make a comment, please raise your hand and then we'll call on you.
Okay, as your responses are still coming in, as you are placing your answers here, I am going to ask you to think in your own mind, think back in your mind of a time, and hold on to this if you can for the very end of the presentation, this thought here. Think about a time where you did intervene when someone verbally accosted, affronted, perhaps they were even violent to a child and to an adult. Think about how you may have responded in each situation. Was it different?
Okay, where's the second poll?
And is it something you would be willing to share?
It disappeared.
Just scroll down. There's a bar on the right-hand side and just scroll down there. Grab that bar and push it down.
Yeah, we'll keep moving for you.
And yes, it is being recorded, friends.
It's no problem. Okay, how many results do we have so far now?
We are 9%.
Oh, I think something interrupted your first number. I heard the 9.
71% now.
Okay, let's go ahead and show the results, even at 71%. Take a moment to look at the answers here. So pretty evenly, you say something immediately to correct the person when they verbally affront a child, or you may think of ways, but what's the most important here? The takeaway is that you actually respond in some way. And the second, who would you help more readily? As we just watched today, we noticed that helping children seems to be a little easier than helping adults, yes? Only 2% said that you would actually help an adult. 4% said that you would help a young adult. Let's see if we can't change that. From what we've seen earlier in the devotional, we noticed that the people that have been hurt in mass shootings, in fact, there have been 7 in the past 20 days, 7 in total. The majority of them were done by young adults, but who were 22 and over. Of course, we know the Buffalo, New York situation was actually done by someone that was 18 years old. But the understanding here is if we are not able to help adults, or if we are fearful, like that teacher I mentioned before, it's going to be hard for us to make a difference. So keep all of these elements in your mind as I move forward, moving forward. And thank you so much for responding. As I mentioned before, K through 12 civil leadership, the training program came from the dissertation, right? As I'm going through this process of trying to learn what it means to gather research and what I want to explore, I realized that I wanted to understand the relationships that people have with one another. I told Sherilyn that I had my own experience with discrimination on a very high level. That added years later to the comment that I heard from this teacher that I respected and was shocked and flabbergasted when I heard her fear surface in what sounded to me like prejudice or discrimination. But these are some of the things that I was unaware of. I was unaware that there are workforces out there and people are unhappy and they're not engaged at work. Did you know that in a recent poll, the 2021 Global Workforce Report, we discovered that 50% of the workforce, any workforce you can go into industry-wide, and this is global, 18 to 43% are not engaged at work, they're unhappy. That might lead us to make some decisions that might hurt the feelings of others, yes? Did you know that migration is supposedly fueling immigration according to the US Census Bureau? These results were very simple, and I'll read them to you as I see them on my screens to make sure that I am correct. It says that estimated from our United States Census Bureau in 2034, older adults will then outnumber children. There's a number of people that are on the receiving end of the ism called ageism, one of them. In 2030, it says that immigration is estimated to overtake the natural increase, which is the amount of excess births over the deaths. These are things that are driving fear. Even during the time I was trying to put together an understanding of what to do for a dissertation, supremacy groups in my area were placing candy inside of Ziploc bags and throwing them in the driveways of individuals who are Latino or from the Latinx community, scaring them. 2045, 2040, and 2035 were the dates that the United States Census Bureau says, well, guess what? Not with children, not for children, but for adults, we are going to see an overtake of the majority. The minorities are going to become the #1 population in the United States, driving fear, driving racially related crimes. 2015 to 2017, I don't know how many of you know, but there were protests not only here in the United States, but also overseas. I happened to be in South Africa for a moment when, I will not say which one of the universities, I'll simply say a university auditorium was burned down, and also a statue of a person who was considered to be an overseer and one who owned slaves many, many years ago was defaced. Look at the years here. These years were current years, yes? Those were things that I was unaware of. I was angry, like some of you who just mentioned in the chat that you were angry when you saw what just happened to the Buffalo 10. You were angry when you saw what happened to the children in Uvalde. You were angry. But our anger can sometimes fuel a strategy towards change that is positive. Something else I didn't know when I was working on this dissertation, and I made this really large for you, implicit prejudice. I'll give you a moment to read this. Those of us in copper to gold, we know what this means, yes? I will read it now for you. Implicit prejudice is a negative attitude which an individual is not consciously aware of while simultaneously being against a certain social group. The honors of not trying to teach the psychology until I get to the slide, I'm just going to ask all of us to take a moment to think to ourselves, was there a time when we may have said something to offend someone else? We really didn't mean to do it. Maybe this happened because we were unaware of something. I'll give you a case in point. I once said to my father, who was a very dark-skinned man, his heritage was in Haiti. I said to him, I didn't want to go out with this guy. He said, why not? What's wrong with him? He's a good young man. I said, he's too dark. He's too dark, Daddy. I don't want to go out with him. I had an implicit prejudice as a teenager, a bias. Why do you think my dad maybe became really upset with me? This is the time when I went to see the chat, and I know you cannot show me. I will tell you why though. Because my father was a very dark-skinned man and I loved him dearly. But in that moment, I didn't understand what made him upset. My mother had to tell me what I had done. and I had to apologize to him. The teacher who made the comment, not only did she make it in a large forum, she also scared the little girl in the classroom because she wouldn't allow her to go to the bathroom. I didn't tell you that part. Did she do it because she was a mean, angry, disturbed? No. She did it because she was afraid. She could not speak Spanish. She couldn't understand what the little girl was saying. And she felt like if she tried to explain, she would fail. She was a veteran teacher. What would that look like for her to fail at teaching a student? How would that feel? Now, I'm not asking that we forgive everyone for every crime that they commit. I'm not asking for us to give them a pat on the back and to excuse them. What I am asking, as I had to find out moving through a dissertation, as the years have gone through creating K-12 civil leadership, what I'm asking from us is that we stop and think first as to what, delve into the mind, what makes people do what they do. Because only then can you begin to fix what the true issue is. You have to figure out what is that point of fear for each person, because it is there. So if you notice, there's a little circular arc of the horizon at the top of the screen. That's me expressing to you that I could see the light, even though this implicit prejudice was huge in the location where I was living. I shared with Cheryl something that was really personal. However, when people look this up on the internet, they can find everything about it. When I said that I had my own run-in with discrimination, I didn't have it until I was an adult, which led people to put feces on the front steps. Yes, dung. Yes, whatever you want to call this, poop on the front step of our home, which made me fearful for my mom, fearful for my son, fearful for leaving the house sometimes. We had to turn that around because you can't live in fear, correct? All for standing up for children who were being discriminated against by people who held implicit prejudice in such a way that it then became an outward action that showed us discrimination. I asked you earlier, what would you do if students were, or a child was verbally affronted or hurt? Many of you said that you would definitely help the child before you would help an adult and before you would help someone that's in that middle age group, a young adult. But guess what? Even though the child needed help, in fact, it was more than one, and that helped me to build up my confidence to actually do something, to put legs under myself, to move, to make a difference, to take my first step. The adults will still go on to make the same mistakes if they are not now embraced in some way to change the behavior. So I learned, here we come with the more formal way of thinking, okay, the more formal part of the presentation. I learned in the dissertation that only through knowledge, gaining knowledge, would I be able to figure out how to help other people. It was not enough to have a passion. It's not enough to do that. We have to be able to center and balance ourselves, at least I do, and those that I work with, in order to help do the same for others. If I'm an emotional mess, can I help you? Probably not very well. And racial PTSD, it is real. Take a look at your local veterans site, look it up online, and you will find it. It's been in existence for a long time. This does not just start in 2020. So how do we educate ourselves? There is a theory. This is one of the theories that I studied. I took 3 theories and put them together after I located them. And that is how I was able to move towards K-12 civil leadership. This is how this dissertation made sense to me. Now, let me show you this first, and then I'll tell you about the dissertation. What happened was, I cannot say the name of the school, but I went into a school who had created this program. This program was to help students to learn how to have interactions with dissimilar individuals so that they can move forward, so that these students would have some type of exposure to something other than poverty, other than strife. And what we discovered is that they were very open to meeting people who were dissimilar. The more they learned from people who didn't look like them, who didn't speak like them, who were in a different socioeconomic status than they were, the more ready their assistant principals and assistant counselors thought that they would be for the world. The closer they grew, the more trust they gained. And I say this to you because trust is going to be an important word that I say again when I show you the next side of the screen. If you are looking for a way to change your thinking, to reduce the prejudice in yourself or others, consider this. Learn, educate oneself. C2G, copper to gold, that's one way. Take that first step. Read classic books. Why? Because our classic books will show us an indicator and a view of racial discrimination, ageism, sexism that you have maybe never pondered before, or perhaps you looked at it and you thought it's gone now. It is not. Opposing dialogue. Talk to people who think differently from you. When you speak to people who look different, sound different, think different, you are doing something to yourself. You're teaching yourself how to communicate without becoming angry, without having to walk away. You're opening your mind. You're teaching your brain to think differently. You're creating new synapses every time you do something new that's a challenge for you. Here it says contact theory. It was created by Gordon Allport a long time ago. It's one of the reigning theories in the work that I do. He came up with this simple 3 steps, not that simple when you try to do it, but this simple 3-step method. The first is to have direct contact with someone who is dissimilar than yourself. You can put these two together, but note that he really did mean to speak to them face to face or see them and incorporate your thoughts with theirs and work towards a common goal. We tend to not be angry with people that are doing the same things that we want to do when we are working towards a common goal. For instance, in sports. Now, I mentioned a little while ago, trust. This is something that some of you may not believe, but I will tell you. Remember I mentioned that there was a program I wanted to study. I wanted to see what was the motivation behind education leaders allowing this outside entity to bring a program into the school system. What they told me is that they thought that the leaders were people that they knew for years and they had a great track record. Therefore, they trusted them. Those of you that are in education, you might notice, or in fact, those of you that deal with contracts, we write them every day. All of us do for some reason or another. Do you just sign a contract with someone because you are interested in the services that they can offer you? Or do you have to feel a certain trust for either the brand or the customer service person that was speaking to you? You probably will not sign something unless you feel that hint of trust. Well, imagine an entire school system signing off on a piloted program for free just based on trust, not because they knew that the motivations would mesh with what they needed, but because they trusted them. Trust. So here's the second part of what I wanted to show you. So we have the theory down. We understand theoretically what we need to do. We need to go out and communicate with people that are different from us. Perhaps we don't know anyone. No one's in our neighborhood that doesn't look like us, or maybe we don't know. So we need to find places to help submerge ourselves into that vein. Then we need to find resources that we can study that are not permeated by others. Meaning sit home and watch a movie on a genre or a culture that you have just never had any type of connection with. Try to do that. That's part of the 3-step strategy. In addition to submerging yourself in a forum, maybe you start off small. You go to the grocery store and you introduce yourself to someone just as you're saying goodbye, have a good day, and that person doesn't look like you. Whereas normally you may have gone into the grocery store and never took a moment to speak to someone who does not look like you. In fact, perhaps you walk around in the grocery store, I have done it before, looking for someone that looks like you instead of a person that does not look like you to ask for their assistance. Take a walk on the wild side when you feel safe and try the person that doesn't quite look like you where you feel safe. So the strategies that were incorporated inside of this training program and what came through the dissertation and what I used was something called culturally relevant pedagogy. It was created by Gloria Ladson Billings, and it has 3 domains to it. One of those domains, which I'll tell you is the most important, is getting to know, for a child to get to know a culture outside of their own. The others I will not delve into at this time because it can be lengthy, but that's what's important. And notice how the two connect. This contact theory over here was made in the late 1960s. Culturally relevant pedagogy was made in 1995. That theme, that vein of thinking is the same. Copper to gold gives you the same vein of thinking. So there could be some merit to it, yes? Moving to civil leadership, one of the words on the document that I gave you was civility. I wish I could ask for your opinion right now, for you to tell me what you think civil behaviors are. But civil leadership is leading oneself through being civil. But in different cultures, civility may look different, which means that we need to remain open. I learned that there was a difference between being civil and one's civic engagement. And the reason this is sideways and it's italicized is because of the reason I mentioned over here, opposing dialogue. Civic engagement is the opposite of civil leadership. Civic engagement is that political landscape that we see. And I was instructed during that time by my committee members to learn what I did not think was in the same parallel of what I wanted to talk about. For instance, we want to talk about race, but our neighbor wants to talk about plants. Or we want to talk about race. We want to talk about justice. And our neighbors want to talk about the political landscape. So let me give you this bit of advice that was given to me. Expand your thinking. I had to find information about civic engagement just to prove that it was not the same thing as civil leadership, which means I had to learn about civic engagement, civic discourse. I had to learn about social studies and history programs and all of these things that were outside of what I wanted to talk about. But the reasoning was because my methodologist, I should say, who is now my coach, who I love so much, explained to me that if you are unable to steer the conversation back around to where you need it to be and you only see your narrow view, then you will never be able to reach people and help them to think differently. And she was correct. In expanding that view, I also expanded myself. So before I play this little game with you that you can play at home, I am going to ask you this other question. When you are thinking about what you can do to make a difference, please raise your hand. Maybe I can do it this way. Raise your hand if you feel that all of your efforts are futile or that there's really nothing you can do. Can you show me a show of hands, people that feel like you really can't stop prejudice? You can't stop your neighbor from talking negatively about those that are older or those that are a member of the LGBTQA+ community or those that speak a different language. Raise your hand if you feel like you're kind of lost in what you can do. I see one hand, but I have a feeling that there are many others. Anyone else feel the same way? Please go right ahead. Raise your hand if you feel like you don't know what to do. I see, and I see your physical hands going up too. Thank you. Thank you.
I have to tell you, Dr. Ree, that in this group, you've got a lot of copper to gold graduates.
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I know we feel this way sometimes. Very good. Okay, thank you. Note that I felt the same way. I'm introverted. I'm an only child. I'm divorced. I felt like you. But guess what? Over time, I began to learn. I began to speak. I got outside of my comfort zone. I took all of the culture that is in me and Sherlyn, and I speak about it all the time. You know, this Latin background, the Native American background, the African background, all of my friends being from all over the place. I was taught and bred to not discriminate, because if I were to discriminate, I would be discriminating against someone that was in my family, someone that was close to me. Remember the comment I mentioned about my dad? And I couldn't do that. So if I can't be angry, if I can't figure out what to do, then that must mean that I need to learn more and then take action, because anger is not the answer. So on the screen, you see a quote. Be faithful in small things, because it is in them that your strength lies. Small steps. Does anyone know who said this? Let's see. Okay, I will show you the picture before I show you the name. Does anyone know who this is?
Oh, Mother Teresa.
There we are. Let's see it. Mother Teresa, exactly. Mother Teresa will back up everything I hear everyone else saying in the business community, in the educational community, in the religious community. Small steps. No one is asking you to go out and change the world or make yourself a target for many people. I know there are some that feel like we need to move and we need to do it now. there are only a few that can do it now. The rest of us are still learning. Should what we try to do not be accounted as important? Should it be discounted? No. If that's the case, I never would have written that book, that dissertation also. I never would have created a program. I never would have stepped down the steps with the feces on them and picked it up and kept going and continued to speak to all of the people that are around me who do not look like me. That's no way to live. Have another one for you. Top of the screen on the right. Our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. Any idea who may have written this one? Okay, I will show you the picture. Okay, let's see if you know now. Who is it? Let's see.
Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama, exactly, very good. Now remember, I spoke to you earlier. I make connections back to what I'm saying, and it may take you a minute when you leave the presentation to realize, oh, this went with that, or this went there. I am very cerebral when it comes to not telling people what to think, but giving you ideas and allowing you to arrive at your own conclusions. I mentioned to you that I was encouraged to know the alternate way of thinking, yes? There is a book in which the Dalai Lama has a conversation with this wonderful man that I'm sure you know who he is. But I will simply say to you, the Dalai Lama can debate. He debated back and forth with this person, and they laughed, and you can see the dancing words come off of the book pages, and you're like, oh, I didn't know the Dalai Lama had a sense of humor. Not only does he have a sense of humor, but it's a sense of humor in which he was able to speak his own truth that was different from Desmond Tutu's. And yet they still remain what? Friends. Friends. So that means that you can make a difference, and you do not have to have the same way of thinking as someone that is near you, but it would behoove you to study and understand a different way of thinking. Yes? To be open. We're asking other people to be open. We need to be the same way. This says, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Before I show the picture, does anyone know? We hear this quote often. Let's see.
Martin Luther King.
There we are. Exactly. Very good. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I will say to you, I was in a group. We put together a wonderful forum and a nice event where not many people attended in this location, but it was for the International Day for the Elimination of Racism on March the 21st, which was started in South Africa. And the slogan was, silence is complicity. Silence is complicity. Remember those friends I asked you about in the very beginning? I asked about your closest friend. What if you were somewhere with that closest friend and someone said something to verbally accost or to affront them? And not just them, but that part of them that makes them different from you. Take a moment and think about that. What if you were to remain silent?
That'd be a time to make some trouble.
It's okay. Did someone say they want to make trouble? Tell me again.
Yeah, to make good trouble, right? That'd be an opportunity to do it right there. If somebody said that to my friend.
Okay, very good. That's a very good response. But you would jump to respond, yes? Because that person is close to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's what this movement of contact theory and all of these things that we see written in these books that are seminal works, and they're big and they're thick and they've been here for years, and we're all saying we don't know what to do. This is one of the prime premises. Get to know someone who is different from you. Get to know them. Don't just go out and become friends with every person that you see. I am not advocating for you to not be safe. I am simply advocating for you to take little steps like I did. I am still taking small steps. And some people say, well, you're not taking small steps. You're doing all of these big things. I feel as though I'm moving because I know that I need to continuously learn. And I'm accepting one new person here, one new person there, a new person here, because guess what? There are so many cultures out here, there are really too many to count. So we can always learn something new and become friends with someone else who is different. That sense of protection and empathy comes when you feel a connection to someone. But you must have safety before you can make that connection. Yes. And in order to do that, you must take small steps. So this says the very last end of this presentation, what will be your series of small steps? You don't have to know them now, but I say this to prompt you to take a second step after you take the first step, and a third, and a fourth, not rushing yourselves, but doing what you can. If you know someone who sits on your county or city council who can make a difference, have a conversation. If you know a child who needs some help or an adult who needs some help, start with a conversation. Just take the steps that you can. Okay, I don't want to hold much of your time, but I will tell you that by taking those small steps, that training program that I spoke about, that's where it came from. Getting through a dissertation, watching people trying to teach children how to get along with each other and how to get along with the adults who came in speaking different languages and looking dissimilar was so much easier, it seems, with children, but it's not because of that. It's because of the same thing. We're all humans. They felt trust. They felt like they were in a psychologically safe environment. Therefore, it was easy for them to connect. Find that environment for yourselves. And thank you for listening. Inquiries, comments. I will stop my sharing.
Thank you very, very much. So take a moment and start lining up with your questions and comments. Just raise your participant hand and I'll call on you. And then you can engage with Dr. Ree, or if you want to put a question or comment in the chat, we will share that with everyone on your behalf if you prefer not to speak. Thank you. That was just so packed.
Yes.
And so it's longer than 30 minutes.
It's okay. I will tell myself this is part of my prayer day. So this is the devotional will help fuse into that, and especially the appreciation for ancestors. It's very important.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Any thoughts or comments, folks? It's been a very packed evening, I know. And going from one thing to the next. Okay, great. Robin. Hey, Robin, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Robin.
Yeah,
I
just want to thank you, because one thing you did say is the little steps, because so many, with all the stuff going on, sometimes we feel like we have to make these huge steps and we just don't know what to do. And I just feel a lot better. I feel like a lot of times I feel like I should be doing a whole lot more than I am. But I'm doing what I think I'm doing what I can at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Yes, take small steps and you're okay. The energy around you knows exactly what you are doing.
Yes, very true. We have a couple of comments that have come through. And one says, Dr. Ree, your voice is so full of love and acceptance.
Oh.
And then another from Jen Dew Madison. Hi, Jen. And she says, I appreciate your openness this evening very much.
Thank you all. Trust me, people complain that I am not angry enough. As an anger will not get you very far. I have learned that the anger doesn't get you
That's
anywhere.
right. Yeah, it was one of the points that you brought up early on about focusing that anger or that grief or that sadness. You know, channel it into something good, channel it into that first small step, you know, whatever that may be for you. Tracy, hey, Tracy.
Hey, RiChar, thank you so much. That was just beautiful. I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about the idea of kind of creating safety for yourself. I think, I really resonated with what you were talking about, fear being a big motivator. And I think in order to take little steps, and I really resonated with what you said about feeling safe, but could you speak a bit more about maybe some strategies that you've used or that you've seen work that could help you to feel safe a little bit more?
Yes, certainly. So now there are so many, oh my gosh, because there are some times where we live in locations where we may not have someone around us that is different from us. Yes, we might grow up in a location where everyone seems to look exactly the same or speak the same language, but I need for us to please remember, we are not the same. We are each unique. And without getting too far into the psychology, the perception that we have in our minds makes us begin to separate people into these groups of social comparisons. Even right now, and this is something I placed in the book, artificial intelligence is being created based on the work of neuroscientists who are looking into our neural pathways to find out how to duplicate that instant action that happens when our senses take in something that is new. So when we are comfortable going to the grocery store because everyone looks like us, like I mentioned before, or we're comfortable going to a game with our children because we know pretty much all of our neighbors, we might see that one child, that one person that looks different. We are in a public setting where everyone around us makes us feel comfortable, yes? Take that moment. When you're not when you're by yourself. When you're in a setting around people that you know and love, I advocate for a public setting. Go near that person that looks different. Go near that person, pick up something, put down something. Oh, excuse me. Hello. And I know what you're thinking. That makes no sense. I will tell you that what happens to your brain with these subtle movements is immense. Because we are all individuals, but for you, just going near a person who may be, looks different, a different color, a different shade, a different voice, or what have you, might be terribly distressing. Just to get near that person in a setting that you already feel safe in, it's a huge step for you. You see, it's a huge step for me. I can give you an example. There are some people that I work with that are located in Israel right now, and they are people that are not Israelis. They feel a lot of discomfort in just going up and talking to the people. They're in a work setting where it should be safe, yes? They don't feel safe enough. There's no trust there. So therefore, they don't even speak. They just continue to walk by the people every day, and they go to their desk and they go to their offices and they don't speak. And I mentioned to the person, I said, well, micro affirmations, they are small, subtle acts of kindness that we can do that make a tremendous impact. Educators have been told about them for years. Those who are in psychology know all about it. I said, why don't you just try to say hello? One person will do. In saying hello to the one person, I will tell you this one leader tried it for 1 week. He spoke to one team member, went to his office. Came back in the afternoon, spoke to another one. Hello, how are you doing? Have a nice day. He did this for 1 week straight. By Wednesday of the week, the people were speaking to him first. By Friday of the week, additional leaders who did not look like he looked began to speak to their team members. Sometimes I say things and people say, oh, Dr. RiChar is just, oh, I have seen the research. I have read it all. But what strikes me are the personal stories. And when he told me that that happened in a week's time, I said, oh, all the research is right. It makes sense. Why are we not looking at it and doing these things? So now they can begin to have conversations because they are speaking to each other. Mm-hmm. But that's a safe environment. You must find the area that is safe for you. If it's sitting at home watching a movie about, people that are living, let's say native people that are living in Australia, mm-hmm. and you live in Australia and you're afraid to go near them, watch the movie and call over a friend. Do a watch party with someone that's across the country. Have a conversation afterwards and take that first step. Drive through the neighborhood. Just drive through. Does that make sense to you, Tracy? I know they seem like very unorthodox ways of thinking, but that's what's going to get you where you need to be sometime.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think, yeah, just starting from a place where you're feeling somewhat safe to be, it's a safe environment to start with, to take the risk.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes a good sense. And then, as you build, you're able to do more, I think. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
I've been robbed twice in my life.
Yeah.
2 times. One with my mother. 3 times, actually. One with my mother when I was little. One man tried to take my car when I was out in the broad daylight. One time in the evening with my mom. And when people say to me, you shouldn't go out at night, I said, I was robbed in the daytime, or at least he tried to. I fought him.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, what, I'm supposed to stay in my house all the time? I'm just going to go out more in the daytime and have more positive interactions. So now I can go out at any time, you see?
I'll share a story with you when we're not on the thing, RiChar, that you might appreciate that goes along with that.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll have time for you to share it with all of us later on. But we've got a couple hands up, and we do have another comment that came directly to us from Jan Finley. Thank you ever so much for your presentation. Your reminder of taking small steps. It reminds me of the quote, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." And so we have in the queue, Sandra, then Janae, and then Kate Vesely. So Sandra, you want to go ahead, come off mute?
Good afternoon. Thanks. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your wonderful insight and sharing. I was just sitting here thinking, as I do quite a bit, one thing that I've decided about fear is that I stopped fearing, when I learned to trust God, I stopped fearing other people, other situations, whatever, because God always has my back. Okay. And even though, we go into these situations and something happens, I can always look to see that it could have been worse.
Yes.
That I was blessed, that I'm okay, and see, I'm that person that's out there talking to everybody in the grocery store. In my grocery store, I have the world coming in. So I'm speaking to folks and trying to get a conversation going with them. And I've even gotten it down to, well, I need to try foods from somewhere else in the world, something that I haven't eaten before. I would like to know. So I will do that on occasion. I'll just go ahead and buy a different fruit or whatnot and just bring it home and eat it. And maybe one day I may meet a person from a country who grows this, is common. And I can say, oh yeah, I've had that. And I like that. But I do that all the time. And from the telly, yes, we can go anywhere in the world. I think I've learned that during the pandemic, especially to just go out across the world and see what's going on out there.
Exactly. Oh, you are very open. Thank you so much. Sandra, that's amazing. Yes, that's a first step. Many, many first steps. Yeah. And letting go of that fear. And I love that you said that you feel that you can do so because God is with you. In the places that I am working, sometimes I'm unable to speak about religion, but yes, in our family, definitely at the forefront. That is what helps us to move through, knowing that God, as well as our ancestors, that energy can take anything that we can't see and can move it for us if we just believe. So yes.
And if we're trying to do the right thing too, I believe that if we are doing what we have, as a Baha'i, being taught to do, and what is really moving us from our hearts, I believe that there's some power in that.
Yes, exactly.
Good over whatever, okay?
You're right.
So, okay, I'll be quiet. I'll mute now, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Sandra, so much. It's good to have you here and to hear from you tonight. I just want to share one or two little anecdotes that Sandra's comments and Tracy's raised. With respect to food in the grocery store, the community that I live in where I shop, Woodman's, it's, you know, you got people from everywhere going in there. And the other day I was at the corn bin, you know, where you husk your corn and put in your bag. And I was so delighted because an Indian family was there doing the same thing from India. And, you know, and the mother was saying to the father, yeah, you know, our son loves these so much, you know. And so I got to ask her, I said, tell me, how do you fix your corn, you know, on the cob? And, you know, what do you put on yours? And, you know, we didn't go beyond that conversation, but it was really nice and sweet, you know, and it was nice to have an opportunity to engage with someone. So I was very fortunate in that regard. I found that in the community work, that I have to be the person that says, hi. I have to be the person that says, my name is Cheryl, what's yours? And if I don't ask what's yours, invariably they will not tell me. You know,
Exactly.
so I have found that I really have to be what I want others to be. You know, people just don't introduce themselves as a rule. You know, they're not very friendly as a rule or outgoing. And so I say all that just to say that we have to really become all of those attributes, you know, or all those qualities ourselves. And I learned that step by step, because I would go, gee, I'm saying hi to people, but no one's saying hi back. You know, what, geez. So then I started saying, hi, my name's Cheryl, you know, and really getting in their face about it. You know, you're not just gonna, you know, walk past me. And then, but then they still wouldn't tell me they wouldn't introduce themselves. So I realized, okay, I've got to ask them, well, what's your name? What unit are, you know, what part of the building are you in? You know, kind of things like that. And it paid off, you know, it paid off. I made a number of, you know, budding friendships that way. So let me not go on. Okay, Janae.
Amen,
Yeah,
amen, amen, Cheryl. I agree with you and what Sandra was saying. Doctor, I so appreciated your presentation this evening. It was very, very insightful. You made me think of a couple of things, you know, as people are talking about how can they make connections. And I think you did allude to this. Sometimes folks feel that, you know, they have to absolutely go find somebody that's different. But to me, in this day and age, there's so many things that's going on that relate to the issues of so many people. Give you an example, you know, one's very current right now, whether we're talking about housing or whether we're talking about voting. If you have something that you see will impact quality of life for all of us, and it's something that you may have a passion for, get involved and get connected with that.
Yes.
Because when you're doing that, you're likely to meet a whole bunch of people that you wouldn't have met before and who are different. And so it's oftentimes putting yourself in a situation where you're active.
Yes.
And you draw to you people that you wouldn't have expected. One such example, well, two I'll give you. One, I have a dear friend who is Jewish, and periodically she will go with me to different Baha'i presentations. Her husband, you know, I see him on occasion, but he's never part of our gatherings. But one day she brought him out to brunch. And in the conversation, he said something and she kicked him under the table because it was inappropriate. She felt being insensitive. And what he was relaying a story about, he'd been in the post office and there was a Black gentleman that was standing in line to return a package that had been delivered at his house and it was not correct. And so he says to the guy, wow, you're being really honest. I didn't know that you could be like that. And so, you know, the guy looked at him, didn't say any words, and, you know, went on continuing with what he was doing. So he was saying, I don't know why I don't know why he was upset. I was just complimenting him on being honest. I said, would you have complimented a white person standing in line to return a box? Mm-hmm. And he thought about it. So his wife had kicked him because she didn't want him to be offending me with any further. But when I spoke to him and we continued that conversation, he said, nobody ever tells me these things. And so how am I going to know? And my wife just kicks me to shut me up. Mm-hmm. Well, the gentleman now writes me emails. He sent me something today about 3 women that had bought a town, and he was upset also. He follows the news, and anything related to Black people, he wants to talk about. Well, the point is, he is at least learning, mm-hmm. and he's trying out different things. And so we have a wonderful time. I'm going to share a different story about talking to people. I grew up in New York City, in the South Bronx, and it was a pretty rough neighborhood. Wherever I walked, I would always make eye contact with people and say hello. Mm-hmm. To the point that whenever I went up and down the street, all kinds of people were saying hi and nodding to me. And I was with a friend. He says, wow, you know everybody. I said, no, I don't. I don't know half of these people. He says, why are you speaking to everybody? I said, because I could get 10 feet away and somebody could try to do me harm. Mm. And my hope is that because I looked in their eyes, yes, and I said hello, I said, yes, I see you, and they nodded back and they saw me, or they smiled back and they saw me, that they might turn around and come to my aid.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you just gave 2 very important points. Oh, Sherilyn, I'm looking at the little clock on the side. Let me see. You said 2 things that are really important. And I don't know if Sherilyn, actually, if you experienced the same thing. I was taught to speak, but I grew up in a location also where the way it worked there is that you did not speak and you adopted a face. And the South Bronx it's almost maybe a little parallel to where we were in Washington, D.C., but I was taught at 9 years old, catching the bus by myself, going to, my first time going to a 7-day Adventist school. I was in private school for quite a while, but I was taught that you adopt the face everywhere you go. And I was a small little girl. And you make this face and you look at people, or you don't make any eye contact. You adopt the face and you keep moving. You don't speak and no one will bother you. Now in our area, that's what you needed to do. And as soon as you became really open, which my mom was, really open and speaking to everyone, that's when you put yourself at risk for people to think that you're such this nice person that they can come after you and take advantage of you. And I mentioned to you when we were robbed, or someone attempted to rob us the 3rd time I was with my mom. The very first time I was with my mom. The 2nd time I was by myself, and he fought me and he did not get the car. So, and I still had the face, but it took me forever to adopt the face because I was just naturally, inclined to be nice and introverted to myself, but I had to actually learn how to do that. Today, I think I'm probably in the middle. I will speak to people more openly in locations. So it's very interesting, our different experiences. And there's only one other point that you made about going out and becoming involved with things. I found that as I started to speak to more people, I was asked to join committees. I was appointed to places and and that's before the doctorate. Doctorate has nothing to do with it. It was because they saw that I was interested. And that's how I began to get a better understanding of the community and getting along with people who were different. Look for your human affairs commissions. Get online and look at the county website, the city website, find out what the Board of Appeals is doing. What do you need to do to get on these boards? It's usually not more than just fill out a little document and meet once a month or so, but you'll start to expand your reach.
Yeah, that's, oh, go ahead, Janae.
Yeah, I was just about to add, just one other thing about that, looking people in the eye and speaking to them. That's one thing, but the other part is your body posture.
Yes.
Okay, so simply because I was doing that, my posture also said, don't mess with me.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm here. Thank you for that part. Tell that part. You have to say that, Janae.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, no. I mean, I wasn't a fool in the South Bronx. No, but there, you may notice too, a lot of places when you're walking, particularly Black folks will look at you and nod.
Yes.
You know, if they don't speak, what they're saying is, I see you. Okay.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're vulnerable. It is, I see you.
Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's true.
Definitely. Yeah, I grew up in Connecticut on the East Coast, and kind of got mixed messages a bit. I was, on the one hand, I was told as a young girl, and this was by my girlfriend's father, and he said, you should always look people in the eye, you know, when you're talking to them, okay? And then when I was a little bit older, I remember my sister telling me, don't look guys in the eye, you know, because they're going to think, you know, you're interested, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so it's like, okay. And then there was a time where I actually lived on the streets of Connecticut in what was called the Congo, a neighborhood in New Haven, Connecticut. And it's very rough, very, very rough. And again, you learn that you adopt this posture of, if you're bringing it, I got it for you. Okay. You know, now as a Baha'i and, you know, someone who's trying to engage in community. Well, one, I'm not in the Congo for one thing, but but I tend to look people in the eye. And I am more outgoing. I'm an introvert. And so this is something I have to consciously do because otherwise I'm really quite shy and very quiet in person. So yeah, so it's varied, you know, it's varied. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Kate's been waiting and then Robin's back. Go ahead, Kate. You're on mute.
Hi. Yeah, I'm driving through the country. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I've been fighting my fear to say something. My comfort is to not say anything. So this is hard. So I'm going to say something. So I was going through my father's yearbook and I saw in there someone had written something along the lines of, hey guys, can you be quiet for a second? Something along the lines of, I want to thank my nervous system wants to thank your nervous system for welcoming me into this school in a sea of nervous systems that did not want me there. And I asked my father, so I looked up the name of the guy and I found him there. And it was this young Black man in this high school. And I asked my dad about him. And he said that, yes, this guy is the first, my dad grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And he said that this gentleman was the first Black person in senior high that he had ever met. And he noticed that a lot of the students, they weren't unkind, but they weren't kind. But they also wouldn't stand very close to this man. And so my dad, who's painfully shy, along with this other guy who's very shy, my dad just noticed that people weren't standing near him. So my father would always find ways to go and just stand near him, but they never spoke. My father said that he just didn't know what to say. He just saw that this opportunity just to stand close was something that he could do to help this guy know that, you know, that he's there. And the whole year, like, they didn't become friends, but they always, I can't say they didn't become friends, but they didn't socialize. They didn't talk. But my dad always just stood close to him. And so this guy came up near the end of the school year, asked if he could write in my father's yearbook and wrote this. So that's one thing about small steps. And the other thing is I'm a school bus driver, and I hear all the time on the radio these bus drivers that get really impatient and annoyed with students on the bus, especially little ones who don't speak any English, and they don't really know where to get off, or they're crying and they can't communicate with the driver what their needs are. And these drivers are like, they can't ride the bus if they can't speak English. And they'll say this stuff on the radio that the district hears as well. But there was one driver who texted me and said, Kate, you know, I'm getting so annoyed with these kids. I say hi to them and they never say hi to me. And I was like, you know, talk to the parent if they're there and find out where they're from, because culturally, that may not be something that's respectful for these kids to look you in the eye and even say something to you. And so that's what this driver did, and found out that, yeah, it was not within their culture. But this guy went the whole year being so angry at these disrespectful children, but never thought to take it a step further to gain the knowledge to understand why. And he felt really bad. And he was like, wow, all this time they were showing me respect. And he eventually said towards the end of the year, he didn't say anything to them anymore. And sometimes, I'm sorry, I'm maybe talking too much, but sometimes he felt like as the kids were walking to their seats, he was so angry at them that as they were walking to the seats, he felt like pressing on the gas and making them trip or fall in the bus, because he wanted to retaliate against these little kids who were actually trying to show him respect. And he just, he said that was a profound change, and he will definitely be more. Now he wants to learn how to say to these kids in Spanish, what is your name? Like, where is your stop? Just to try and to help communicate with these kids in a way that they can understand. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I have to say thank you so much for saying that. False evidence is appearing real. Yes, you spoke a very powerful message, and that person was the ram in the bush for. Your dad was actually the ram in the bush for the person. And at the end of the year, figured that out. Thank you so much. What you have just said sheds light on the fact that what I said maybe has a little merit to it. That people really do this. They do. It's just a human response. But at least someone took the time to ask you the question. And for them, that was the small step. Thank you for answering them.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. That was a wonderful story. Two wonderful stories to share, actually. Yeah. Robin.
Yeah, I remember the walk and the talk. I lived in the Ringe Towers in Cambridge, Massachusetts, when I had two small boys, and we had to learn how to walk without fear. And when we saw people who didn't belong in the neighborhood, and the fear they walked with, it was like saying, please attack me, please attack me. It felt like that's what they were saying with their body language. Not, they didn't want to be attacked, but that's it. Right. So all these years later, I have a great deal of trouble asking people anything about their personal business or their names, because of that 3-year experience in those towers. And that was a rich experience. I'm not complaining. It was something I'll always be grateful for, because I know a lot more about things than I did before. But so you're kind of inspiring me to open up again and maybe start asking people their names. In my van, most people here who know me know I drive Amish people for a living, and they're very insular. And I was at an Amish fundraiser dinner last night, and the little kids, they come out and stare at people because they're so unexposed to people outside their culture. They generally stay home. And so the little girls there were a bunch of little girls just sitting there, not speaking, staring at us eating. And they knew who I was and who my husband was. But the man next to me was some, you know, people just sat down to eat, and he's going, he says, oh, he says, they just keep staring at me. I said, well, they just want to look at you. They haven't seen people like you. And he says, well, I'm just going to have to go up and hug them. And I said, if you do, they're going to run, leave them alone, you know. But yeah, there's so many different cultures and so many different ways to respond. But I have, in order to learn their names, I've been putting a guest book in my van so that they could sign it, because I'm too shy to ask everybody their names. So I'm going to have to get out of that. So
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Robin. See, it's a human construct. Yes, it's a human construct. Thank you. And you'll know when the time is right for you to say something. I guess all three of us here are introverts, yes, or more shy about that, the same, or have that introverted part of ourselves when it comes to speaking and asking people those questions. Not you now, Sherilyn. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Yes. Sherilyn, you are muted.
I love the creative idea you had, Robin, for your guest book. I think that was a wonderful way to start, you know. That was just really smart. That was just totally smart. Okay, Carolyn, and then I think we'll take one or two more comments or questions, and then we're gonna ease on out. Carolyn, you're on mute. Still on mute. There you go.
I'm off now. I'm off mute now. I noticed that sometimes I wonder about easy familiarity almost, and I think I'm an introvert as well, but I've learned to be more of an extrovert. But because I'm a physician, you know, so I have a lot of intimate relationships with people. But if I meet someone in the library, sometimes they come up to me so friendly, it almost scares me. And I want to be friendly, but I don't remember the context in which I knew them, you know?
Yeah.
This happened to be a Black person, and he'd been to the office, and people will always say, oh, you remember this, and you remember this, you remember, and I don't. You know, I'm 75 years old. I don't remember every detail. And I tell them, I say, look at it this way. If I get senile, I won't use your name. You know, I won't be talking about you, don't worry. But try to make it look like an advantage instead of a disadvantage, you know. But I feel bad when I can't be as warm as they are sometimes. And you think, I mean, it was a public space. And then the reason that I know that it offended him a little bit was because they said, well, I know that my medical assistant is Black too. They said, I know she would remember me, you know, like that. But he didn't do it in a mean way. He was still being friendly. He was just dropping a name that we would both know, I guess, you know. That's the way I felt about it. But I feel like there's just too many barriers between me and other people.
I would ask you this question. Do you want there to be barriers between you and other people? And are you saying that there are barriers between yourself and people who identify maybe with the same ethnicity or race as you, or specifically with people that are dissimilar?
Well, I
In
don't
other
know.
words, do you forget everyone's name? Like, do you forget people's names across color lines, across backgrounds?
Everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
just lead with that.
Yeah.
Remember.
I don't think that, I don't know exactly what he was thinking, but he was just so friendly. And
It's
this
okay.
is partly a struggle I have, is feeling it's very easy for me to play the role of the doctor because I feel very comfortable there. Whereas in social things, I'm not so comfortable.
Yes.
And but I do have friends across different races. In fact, probably but even my closest friends, I don't stay in touch with very much. So that bothers me too. But I can only do so much, I'm still working full time. But, it's just a struggle sometimes to figure out what it is God wants me to do,
Yeah. I could share one or two things that might help you in some way because I identify with some of your struggles. And it has happened to me on a number of occasions where, oh, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I don't know who that is, but I pay attention to the spirit that's coming to me, this enthusiastic, warm spirit, and I give it right back. Oh, hey, how are you doing? And I'll say, you know what? Please forgive me, but I don't remember your name.
That's good. Yeah.
Or where we
very
met.
honest. Very
I'm
honest.
just honest about
I
it.
like that. Yeah.
But you accept them first with the same warmth or even more. This is a friendly, someone who obviously thinks well of you, right? You want to embrace that. And, and then I just say, I'm really embarrassed or, whatever. I don't know where I know you from or, whatever. And, and then just kind of go from there. With respect to having friends that you don't communicate with very often. A couple of my best friends, we have a marathon, well, one of them in particular, we have a marathon conversation and meeting every year on Christmas Eve. We go to Applebee's for dinner and around 6 o'clock and we close the place out. We're not that far apart from each other now that I've moved back to Wisconsin. We don't talk on the phone, none of this, but we have these awesome conversations and we think of each other as best friends. So best friends doesn't necessarily, and good friends doesn't necessarily mean, you're on the phone. Some people can handle being on the phone every day. And I don't know how people that talk that much can
I don't
get
know
anything
either.
done.
I don't
not
have.
one of those people.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I admire folks like that. I can't do it. I need my mental time, So just to say there are other ways, look at how you're defining your friendships, right? Look at how you're defining and look at the quality. It's the quality that counts, not the frequency or, any of these other things. So those would be my shares. Okay, Gail is going to close us out.
Oh, Charlene, wait a second.
Yeah,
Dr. Carolyn is writing as you speak.
Who?
She is writing here.
Oh, okay.
She's actually writing down.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to tell her is that willingness. You are exercising the first step because you're willing to change. You're even writing notes.
Notes, yeah.
So the next time, as Charlene said, you see someone you don't know, it's like if you know you don't want to be that way, and you know you are that way with more than one person, of course you're going to forget some people. I've taught 2,500 students or more. Of course you're going to forget them. But what she said makes perfect sense. If you need to take that note and stick it in your pocket to remind yourself what to do so that you don't feel like you have a tremendous amount of anxiety when someone comes up to you, then make it an affirmation that you repeat to yourself every day. That is positive. A
Give
positive
the same
affirmation.
spirit back to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Repeat it 7 times every
Okay.
day,
Uh-huh.
and then it will become a
And
part of
then
you.
I can still be honest and say, now
Of course.
what was the
Of course.
context of our interaction? Because I've been in
Yeah.
the same area for like almost 50 years. And so
Of course.
actually that just happened today, but because she was talking to me about her sister. And but like you said, it was a good feeling. It was just, sometimes it makes a person feel inadequate.
It's okay.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, just to one up you, you know, on that, on 3 occasions, I've lived in Connecticut, California, Wisconsin. In each of these locations, I've had people come up to me and, well, the one in particular I'm thinking about was California, and I'm in a Woolworths department store buying a belt. Okay, I'm about 19 years old or so. And I just moved to Fresno, and the salesperson there was ringing me up, and she goes, "Oh, it's so good to see you. How you been?" And I'm thinking, oh, she's so friendly. How nice. You know, I'm going along with it, right? And then she asked me, she says, "How's your mother doing?" And I just kind of froze because my mother had died the year before. And I said, "Well, you know, my mother passed." "No, I just talked to her yesterday." Then she realized she had me confused with someone else. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't my bad memory, it was hers. But thank you, Caroline, for bringing that up, because I'm sure a lot of us deal with that. So it's really awesome you brought that up for us. So we're going to have Sharon and then Gail, and then we're going to close it out. If someone would like to say a prayer, we have one more slide we want to show you just to give you some links from tonight. And then if someone would like to say a prayer to take us home. Mano Share, is that you raising your hand for a prayer? Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Sharon.
This is just a really quick thing, is that early in my career, I would have contact with a lot of students and they would know me and I wouldn't know them. And one of my coworkers said, what you do is you, like Sherlyn said, you greet them with the same excitement and say, "Oh," and even if you see them outside of school, "Oh, so-and-so, how are you? What's your name again?" Sherlyn. "No, Sherlyn, I know that's your first name. What's your last name?" And then that makes them think that you really are taking, you know, an interest in them. And if they say their last name, "Oh no, I know that. What's your first name again? Remind me." And that way, the smile on their face, that they think that, yes, because I would remember them. I just don't remember names either. And so that's the way I would do it. That's the way I would, a friend had shared that to me.
Good strategy.
I got to tell you this though, Sharon, if you do that, you better make sure you remember their first name the next time. You got to lock it in because you can't do that twice.
This is true. This is true.
That's wonderful.
Take notes.
Yeah, take notes. Okay. All right, Gail. Hi, Gail.
Hey. Thank you for sharing, Sharon.
Yeah.
Well, Sherilyn, I think what you were saying is when first we practice to deceive, what a tangled web we weave. So the morning that it could get tangled. Well, and I just want to represent, I am not an introvert. So I want to make sure that, and the way I've described myself and lived my life is I don't know a stranger. And it's, and I've lived to tell about it. Because, you know, that's not necessarily an ideal way to go through the world right now. But since I'm really old and I've been doing it for a long time, I keep doing it. But an important factor for my connecting is humor. And I recall being in what was a safe space for me in a gym, a Gold's Gym, and I was trotting along on the treadmill. And there was a very large Black man right next to me. I managed to go to the gym at the time that all the bodybuilders were in there because I worked a funny shift and I was available when they were used to kind of being in there by themselves. And it was a little intimidating a lot actually for me. But I looked at this man who had, you know, these huge arms and legs like the size of oak trees. And he was just very serious about what he was doing. And I finally turned and said, "Is this your first day?" And he was just like this cloud had come in and he was about ready to take my head off, and then it connected. You know, he looked at my little smiling face, and so, you know, it was a way to begin a conversation. And then I was no longer, you know, we would chat when I would come to the gym, but I lead with the humor, and it's worked.
Gail, can I ask you a question? And you're in C2G, so I'm asking you the question. Would you say, when you say intimidated, could you be more specific? Were you afraid?
I think no, I really would. I just felt less than. I wasn't all the way to afraid for my physical being in any way, just, you know, that I wasn't really going to be accepted in that group. I think that that I didn't want that to be that way. I wanted it to be a place I could go and have some community, even though we were totally different. So
evidence is appearing real, the fear of not being accepted then.
Right.
And you
yeah.
turned it around. I admire that.
Yes. And RiChar, I could listen to you endlessly. Thank you so much. You just light up my ears and then inside my head whenever I hear you. So thank you so much for tonight. Everything. I took a bunch of notes too.
Thank
and
you.
And this is recorded. So you'll have the recording to look at too. But I will be editing out our consultation on whether to record or not to record. All that's going to get cut out. We have just a couple of comments I want to share with everyone that came in on the chat to us directly. And then we'll pull up one more slide with some links for things we've talked about this evening. And then Manosher is going to grace us with a prayer. I hope it's a Persian chant. That would be so cool, or an Arabic one, whatever you want, Manosher. You have a wonderful voice, and I so thank you. Okay, so Colette had shared what you just mentioned, Ree. Fear is the false evidence appearing real, and it transforms it and can be transformed into face everything and rejoice.
Nice.
Okay, then from Tracy, she said she had to leave early. Much love and thank you so very much. Wonderful. Give my love to RiChar and tell her how much I appreciate her. Laura Ware, who did a wonderful job reading for us this evening, and I meant to thank her again, as well as Regina. That was just beautiful, just beautiful. Laura says, thank you for your presentation. There are some things I hadn't put together until you organized it. Thank you. I will look at the recording again and ask others to look with me. Nice. And Annie and Micah says, I'm so sorry, I need to leave now. Thank you for a very moving, stimulating, and inspiring evening. RiChar, we appreciate how to change our brain by acting differently and the importance of education/knowledge to empower action. Love the idea of learning about other cultures by watching movies. Really made it seem that it can be simple steps that add up to making big changes. Thank you, in all caps, for such a rich evening and wonderful spirit. And Joyce Olinga has been commenting a little bit and says, great suggestions, fantastic sense of humor. That one was for you, Gail.
Yeah, she does have.
Yes, and Sandra asked, how do we access the recordings? If you're a subscriber, you'll automatically get an email saying the recording's up. And we're going to give you a link now. If we could pull up that second to last slide, it says tonight's links on there. And so folks can see that. Yep, that's the one. And so here, if you can just email us here, rhrj19@gmail.com to subscribe to event notifications. That's all we do. We just share information about what's coming on the series, when the recording's ready, and occasionally things that sound really good from other spaces that I think people would like to know about to attend. And then of course we have K-12 civil leadership here. This is the link to Dr. Rhee's website. However, she also has a book, which is with Barnes & Noble, titled K-12 Civil Leadership. If you'd like to look that up, you can access that either directly at Barnes & Noble or from her homepage, and then go to materials, and then it'll come there. And I think she has another publication there as well. Additional learnings, I think it's related to. She mentioned Copper to Gold, a personal transformative approach to race amity. If you'd like to know more about that, just email Copper to Gold and we'll connect you with some information. And then if you're interested in the Baha'i faith, you can go to that link and get more information, or call if you want a conversation with someone. And Rebecca said, thank you so much for another heart-opening evening. I am grateful for your love and wisdom. So great to have you here, Rebecca. Rebecca's coming out of Mendocino County.
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, so we have friends all over the place. And I'm just so delighted. This has been a really full house since we've come back. Since COVID has kind of let up and people have gotten outdoors. We had over 75 participants with us this evening. And so our numbers are getting back up where we're used to them being, around that 100. So we're on our way. So thank you all for coming and being with us this evening. We love you, and we truly do. And again, I want to thank Baha'is for Race Unity out of Tucson, Arizona, for their tributes to the Buffalo 10 and the Uvalde 21, to Dr. RiChar Sancho for joining us this evening and giving us such an informative and delightful presentation in record time and in record slides. No, it's true. It's true. Most people spend an hour, talking and all these slides, and you just got it down. It was, and you gave us so much to talk about and to think about. It made so many great connections for us and how we're looking at moving from knowledge and reflection to taking those important action steps. This is really, really helpful to us. So I think that's everything. I don't think I mentioned, and again, I want to thank Laura Ware and Regina for their readings this evening. And again, Regina, for her beautiful prayer, her a cappella. Yes. Thank you so much. And she also found the Spanish language recording that we played this evening as well. So we wanted something for that to honor the culture of our family in Uvalde. So with that, I guess we're going to go. I don't want to leave, but I always feel that way. And but we're going to go now. So Mano Share, thank you. Hey, Sandy, I got you. I love you. Thank you.
Great program. Thank you.
Thank you, Janae. So good to have you here. And now we're going to have a prayer. So stay just a few more minutes if you can. And then Nason will take us all out. Whenever you're ready, Mano Share. Thank you. Oh, you're on mute. You're still on mute. There you go.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Rhee for the presentation, and also you, Charlene. The reason I volunteered to say the prayer was that you asked me to read one of the writings, and at that time there was an unexpected call that came in, and I lost it. So I thought I would just share the closing prayer It's the short healing prayer in Arabic that I will chant.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Ya Ilahi اسمك شفایی و ذکرک دوایی و قربک رجایی و حبک مونسی و رحمتک طبیبی و معینی فی الدنیا والآخره و انک انت المعطی العلیم الحکیم.
Thank you so much, Manosher. I just sank into that one. This healing is what we all need. Isn't that the truth? Wonderful choice. Okay, friends, Nason, pop on up, Nason. Whenever I see Nason's face, that's when I know he's taking us out. So they're still off camera. So they must be doing something.
We're here.
Okay, are you ready to take us out?
Sure. Y'all have a great evening.
All right, you too. And thank you so much. Goodbye,
Take care,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Allah.
Thank you.